LIU Board of Directors meeting is now called to order. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we would like the solicitor to swear in new and elected board members.
Just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Sue Houston,
Having been elected to the office
Do they lock up for everybody else?
okay, this is sometimes the problem of being virtual and in person, so I apologize. We will do the oath of office again.
What we're going to do is just have you all read the oath, insert your name where appropriate, and you can all read it at the same time. You're going to raise your right hand as you do so.
Bill, just a minute. Does everyone see the agenda and who needs to be sworn in?
Yeah, everybody
Okay.
should have that.
Yeah, we're good.
Hey, Patrick, you have some kind of background noise that's coming through, a squealing noise.
All right, let me take care of it.
We have Sandra, Patrick, Rhonda, Danielle, and Mark Schimmel who need to be sworn in. I already kind of did it. So everyone who I just listed, if we can follow along with Bill.
If you want to let us know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, we'll do this again. You're going to raise your right hand. I
I, Pat McDonald,
Schimmel.
Rhonda Myers. Have
been elected to the
Anyway,
unit
unit
for the Lincoln Intermediate Unit
having been elected to the office of Intermediate Director of the Lincoln Intermediate Unit
State of Pennsylvania,
of the state of Pennsylvania,
solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support,
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
United States,
the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
Commonwealth,
and I will discharge my duties of my office with fidelity.
And that I will
discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Also, Doug White is supposed to be joining us tonight, but he hasn't. He is one of the newest members. He actually is a returning member. So hopefully next month he will be here and we can. I also would like to take the time to welcome Dr. Trail. She is not physically here with us, but she is virtually. And the last time we met, Dr. Trail was not with us yet, since her start date was not until after our last meeting. So I want to welcome Dr. Trail. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
At this time, you please call roll, Jill.
Mark Schimmel,
Here.
Sue
Here.
Brian Huffman,
Here.
Sandra Liggins, Dustin Martin, Patrick McDonald,
Here.
Rhonda Myers,
Here.
Dolores Nestor, Mark Shore, Suzanne Smith,
Here.
Michael Wagner,
Here.
Douglas White, Danielle Whitebread.
I'm here.
We have 11 present.
Thank you. At this time, is there any public comment regarding items on tonight's agenda?
No, we have not received anything.
Okay, thank you. For our next item, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Murphy, who will do the presentation of the project award. Dr. Murphy.
Thank you very much, everybody, and good evening. I have to say, I've been working with this organization now for a little over 12 years, and it continues to be an honor and a privilege to serve this organization, and especially now as the Director of Special Education. This organization, as you know, is steeped in expertise and dedication to meeting the needs of students and who come from our district customers. And the purpose is to support students that they may experience and achieve success. And our programs, and one of our programs in particularly, Project Search, is an award winner program in doing this and meeting this work. And I'm going to turn it over to Patty Wysocki, who will explain a little bit more about Project Search and the award that we have been provided. So Patty.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm really excited to share some information with you about Project Search. It has been a program that we've really been working hard to get up and running for quite a few years. It's a really strong program in preparing our students for transitioning to adult life and to the world of work. So I'm just going to share a little bit of information about it, and then I'd like to introduce our teachers and turn it over to them so that they can share some of the good work they do as well. So Jared, if you would not mind proceeding to the next slide, just to share a little bit of information about what Project Search is. It is a one-year paid internship for students who are in their last year of school. It is an international program. It is very transition focused. We're really working to get those students placed in job placements when they're leaving us. It's the final step for students before they graduate. It really allows for total workplace immersion. It was originated in 1996 in Chicago. At this point, there are 580 sites, 47 states, and also 10 countries. So it really is all over the world. Jared, if you'd go to the next one, thank you. Project Search currently in our area spans 2 counties, York and Adams County. We partner, Lincoln Intermediate Unit partners with WellSpan Health at Gettysburg and York Hospitals, and the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. And then also MHIDD is a partner as well in that program. So our program really focuses on several pieces. We spend some time on classroom instruction, really focusing on the skills that students need for competitive employment. Students really work on exploring different areas of the hospital where they're working and exploring different types of careers in that realm. We're really working with students on the job. It's very hands-on. As we said, total workplace immersion. You can see 750 hours of on-the-job training. Our goal is to have our students competitively employed when they leave our program. and we've done very well with that. And that's what I want to share with you just real briefly on the next slide. Our sites have been in place. The York Hospital site has been in place since 2010. Our Gettysburg site has been in place since 2015. Both sites consistently have job placement averages over 80%. Our York site has been the recipient of the Search Employment Outcome Award for the past 7 years. And our Gettysburg site has been the recipient of the Employment Outcome Award for the past 4 years. So that's what brings us to tonight. We received some notification that they were again honored with the Employment Outcome Award. So we just wanted to recognize the good work that our teachers are doing at both sites and just give them a minute to talk about what they do. So I'm going to, without any further ado, say congratulations to Ruth Moore, who is at our York Search location, and Nicole Lagore, who is at our Gettysburg Search location, and just let them have a moment or two to speak. One more slide, I just want to show you, if you have any questions about any of those locations, we do have their contact information here for you. So Ruth and Nicole, I'll let you just take a moment, if you don't mind, to say hello and share a little bit about your program.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk to you this evening about the Project Search program. I tell everybody, I have been a special ed teacher going on 31 years and spent the bulk of my career at the secondary level with a vocational push. And I would have argued until I was blue in the face that I prepared my students for the world of work until I accepted this position. And it's skills that our students lack, like interpersonal skills, communication skills, problem solving, multitasking, prioritizing, that as a classroom teacher, we don't have the opportunities to provide them chances to develop those skills. So regardless of the type of program or the exceptionality a student comes with, these are areas that they struggle. And Project Search is unique that it allows students to develop these areas that, again, in the traditional classroom, they just aren't given the opportunities to practice. I'll let Nicole talk, and we have a short video that features some of the work that our interns have done at both hospitals.
Hi, I have to say, I have to agree with Ruth. All the years I was teaching beforehand, thinking I was preparing our students, especially in the autism support classroom, for jobs, Project Search changed all that for me. I'd like to compliment, though, I have to compliment York and Adams County, the businesses. Gettysburg College has employed 4 of our students over the past 5 years. Also, WellSpan, we've had students employed. I know Ruth has had many employed at WellSpan in York. We had one student that was employed at WellSpan Gettysburg in food services, and she so much wanted to be in baking. And she worked at WellSpan for over 2 years in our program. After she got hired, she stayed for 2 years, but then she kept wanting to bake. And when Sam's Club opened up 2 years ago in Hanover, she applied for a position there and got a full-time baking position. So I can't say enough about the places in our community that have opened up to us. One of our students this year just got hired at Mount St. Mary's. He started last Monday. When they called me for a reference, they spoke so highly of the Project Search program in both York and Gettysburg. And they told me anytime we had any other students that lived close to the Mount St. Mary's area, to call them if they were interested. They would would want to hear from any of our students, they would hire. Same with Spirit Trust Lutheran, Plum Creek Nursing Home, Hanover Hall. All three of those nursing homes over the past 4 years have hired our employees, our students, and they're still employed there working with benefits. So I just wanted to reach out. I have one other story too. One of our students 4 years ago was hired at Giant in Gettysburg. And he called me in May when all this was going on. And he was always very nervous. And he had to tell me that he was considered an essential worker at Giant food stores. And Froggy 1077 announced him on the air with his name, saying that he was an essential employee for the Giant Food Center in Gettysburg. So he was so excited over that and worked through all of this, which was a great thing that he did, because he was always very nervous. So he's matured a lot. So
Thank you, Nicole.
Mhm.
We do have a very brief video for you. I think Ruth and Nicole might have a few words about some of the photos that you're seeing as we play through the video. Just kind of highlights the different areas that sometimes the students are placed in at both hospitals.
So housekeeping is probably the largest department within both hospitals. And the students have the opportunity to clean public areas, patient rooms, there's floor maintenance and trash collection. And most of the jobs, entry-level jobs out there today involve some sort of cleaning. So there's a lot of transferable skills that they learn in environmental services.
And there, for our program at the hospital, none of these jobs are made up for our students. They do the same jobs as all of the hired people that WellSpan would be doing. And they learn at different levels. Like some will learn the dish area machine, then they'll learn maybe food prep. Then our students have also gone up to serve patients on the floors and work the snack bar area. Engineering department, our students get a big variety. They were laying concrete there in some of these pictures, working on the WellSpan vehicles, helping out in the maintenance area. So there's no job that's made up for them. They're working right alongside the other employees there doing their job. Yeah, they're pressure washing the.
Logistics and distribution encompass many different departments. It's essentially delivering, stocking, maintaining par levels. And with the number of manufacturers in York, the skills that the students learn in these departments are invaluable. There's the food service stock room, there's supplying the medical crash carts, there's supplying nursing stations, the emergency room. So again, very valuable skills that they're transferring.
And I don't think we said this earlier, they work in one department for 9 weeks and we train them so they can work independently. And then they have an evaluation and they evaluate themselves. We evaluate them. Their mentors in their departments do an evaluation also.
Students have to follow all of the PPE required in the different department areas as well. Some require that they have to gown up, of course, put on booties, hairnets if they're going into certain areas. So they're expected to follow all of the same practices that a typical employee would.
And they go through all the policies and procedure training that for orientation that the employees would go through as well too. Yeah.
Patient areas involve mostly, of course, cleaning, room prep, patient transport. A lot of the students think that they want to be in a patient area, but unfortunately they may not have the communication skills or reading or writing or expressive language demands that require to be in that area. We have had one student from the Northeastern School District who was actually hired as a nursing assistant, and WellSpan sent her through their nursing assistance program. They allowed one of the job coaches to attend with her, and she is a full-fledged nursing assistant now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. And thank you for all of the hard work that you have done to make this program successful. It truly is a lot of work, a lot of moving parts, a lot of organizations that are involved, and you two do a wonderful job coordinating, and it shows in the work that comes out of the program and the successes that your students have had. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Nicole. Congratulations again. Your hard work certainly has paid off, not just with winning this award, but also with the success of the students and over the years. And so thank you very much for doing what you do.
Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you.
Does any of the board have any questions for Dr. Murphy or any of the other teachers? I just have, first of all, I want to say thank you to the teachers involved and the people who are coordinating this. I truly appreciate what you guys are doing for our students, to give them the self-worth that they have with these jobs is something that is so it's just so valuable for their continuing as they continue in life. So thank you very much for doing that. I did have one question. How many students do we typically have participate in this in a year?
It really varies from year to year, depends on the number of applicants and the skill levels of the students applying. The program says we can take as many as 12. I typically have 8 to 10 in my classroom, but because Gettysburg is a smaller hospital, Nicole typically has what, 4 to 5?
Right. They say we can have up to 6, but
we have to ensure that we have work rotations for the students to participate in.
Thank you.
Just let me add this, to date, we've had over 25 different department areas that have hosted our interns.
yes, this year will be a little bit more challenging.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our June 30th meeting. The minutes of the June 30 meeting were distributed in the board packet. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes stand approved as distributed. Next item is the consent agenda. We also received an addendum from Jill for a couple of additions to the personnel actions. So for the motion, could we have a motion to approve the routine operational matters contained in the consent agenda, including the addendum for the personnel actions?
So moved.
I'll second. That was Suzanne Smith.
Any discussion? I did have one question. I noticed that there was quite a few resignations, especially, a lot of teacher resignations. Is this a typical, is this something that we typically see at this time of year? Or is this unusual because of everything that is going on in the world?
Tracy, do you want to address that?
Yes. I would say that it is higher than a normal year. I believe that a lot of the employees that were leaving the IU that we spoke with made the decision to either retire or leave. And it it does have to do with COVID, but it's more the fact that they would prefer not to return to a virtual environment and are making the decision to leave as of now. This is a time of year that we do have a lot of resignations at the end of a school year, but it is higher than normal.
And how are we looking at the hiring process? I know we always have a difficult time trying to find teachers. How is that process going with all the resignations and retirements we have?
So we have had, we watch it every single day. So we have moved teachers and paraprofessionals around to open positions within the IU. We have worked with ESS to fill any open positions with subs when we initially open for the school year, because we want to ensure that we're covering all of the positions, but we are being diligent in the fact as to every district opening differently and what the needs are there. So we have limited our hiring, but we are continuing to interview in preparation for more hires to come.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Can we please have a roll call?
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Yes.
Brian Huffman. Brian Huffman. Cassandra Liggins,
Yes.
Yes.
Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Rhonda Myers,
Yes.
Dolores Lester,
Yes.
Suzanne Smith,
Yes.
Michael Wagner,
Yes.
Danielle Whitebread. Danielle Whitebread. We have 10 in favor.
Thank you. Okay, on to new business. Our first item is appointing of a voting delegate for the PSBA Fall Conference. Would anyone from the IU board like to be a delegate at the PSBA conference?
I'd be willing to do that if no one else is interested.
So is there a motion to appoint Mike Wagner to represent the IU?
I motion Suzanne Smith.
I second.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
Can we please have a roll call?
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Easton,
Yes.
Brian Huffman,
Yes.
Sandra Liggins, Dustin Martin,
Yes.
Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Rhonda Myers,
Yes.
Dolores Nestor,
Yes.
Suzanne Smith,
Yes.
Michael Wagner.
Yes.
Danielle's still not. Okay.
Thank you. Our next item of new business is approval of a doctoral research project. Is there a motion to approve the doctoral research study?
So moved. Mike Wagner.
I'll second Suzanne Smith.
Any discussion? Could we please have a roll call?
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Sue Heaston,
Yes.
Brian Huffman,
Yes.
Sandra Liggins, Dustin Martin,
Yes.
Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Rhonda Myers,
Yes.
Dolores Nestor,
Yes.
Suzanne Smith,
Yes.
Michael Wagner.
Yes.
10 in favor.
Thank you. Next item is the Employee-Sponsored Health Center. If you guys remember, we've been working on this for quite a few months, then we kind of had a short lapse because of everything with COVID. But now we're looking at the motion that is before us is to approve the establishment of an employee-sponsored health center. And if I could have Tim just kind of give us a brief background in terms of what this is actually we're going to be voting on.
Yeah, a brief recap of the health center is previously many of our districts have asked us to research opening a employee-sponsored health center. And the benefits of a health center is it provides increased wellness to our employees and also results in savings to our medical costs. Previously, the board approved a feasibility study, which was then provided to the board, and the pro forma financial statements of that study showed that we would achieve financial savings from opening a health center. The board then approved for the IU to do an RFP for medical providers, and those proposals have now been received and reviewed. 8 national vendors responded to the RFP. 3 of those vendors project financial savings in excess of our analysis. And this week we plan to interview 4 of those national vendors that submitted proposals. And so at this point, it's currently our recommendation for consideration for the approval of the employer-sponsored health center, which will then result in the IU finalizing a medical provider contract for then to be presented at the board for a future meeting. If the board does not desire to pursue the clinic, then obviously we won't attempt to go through the process of finalizing a contract with a medical provider.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the establishment of an employer-sponsored health center?
So moved, Pat McDonald.
I'll second.
Is there any questions or discussions?
Guess I was wondering how significant the savings were. Maybe Tim can answer that.
Tim, is that something that you want to discuss?
I don't need an exact amount, just maybe like a percentage. I don't want to
Yeah, I don't know.
obviously enlighten
Yeah.
the people that are bidding, just an idea of, are we talking like 10% compared to what we normally pay? And I don't need exact numbers. Or are you talking more than that?
Tim, I'll let you.
Sure. One of the key points is, as far as the financial savings, to build up the utilization of the health center. With additional savings as the utilization increases, and then if we open up the center to districts that are interested, you'll have additional utilization, which covers more of the overhead, and we should incur additional savings as well. We have savings over a 5-year period, which also includes startup of costs. Over that 5-year period, it would be savings from some of the vendors in excess of $1 million is what we currently have on the table. So I personally would not want to venture in this if there was not significant financial savings to justify the time and the potential risk involved with this. And so in my mind, it has to have, some pretty significant savings to make it worthwhile. And I think we have that in some of the proposals.
And it's the plan, as Tim noted, to extend it, if it's successful, obviously, to school districts
I didn't quite hear your answer, and I don't think it came through on the closed captions, right?
Is the plan to extend it to school districts if it's viewed to be successful?
Yes, that's what many of the school districts would like us to do, because with a self-funded insurance plan, they all realize, everybody that's in the trust, that one of the key things is a employer-sponsored health clinic where you can control the cost of medical care, but yet it's also beneficial to the employees. For example, I'll just use one example. It would have an on-site pharmacy. And when you prescribe medicine to a patient, it's documented that 80% of that medicine can be prescribed in a generic form. So the on-site pharmacy would be stocked with generic medicine that would not cost the employees anything. It would be no copay compared to what they're paying now. So it's a win-win situation for both the employers as well as the employees.
I should be clear, success in my mind is not necessarily all related to financial. Obviously, if there's good care and good product and something like he just talked about, that's deemed to be successful. But to start, I would envision you would want some financial savings.
Yeah, we agree. Yep.
Tim, we are still looking at just at the location at the York Learning Center and one here, and not in New Oxford, but that we had voted a couple months ago about our agreement with a building that's just across the street from New Oxford office, correct?
The proposed sites are the York Learning Center, a location here in New Oxford, which we have not locked in yet. There is potential space across the street from our office here in New Oxford, but we have not committed to that space. And then for Franklin County, there'll be telemedicine available where the employees in Franklin County, if they so desire, can use telemedicine and access the clinic if they don't desire to drive to one of the other locations.
Thank you. Any other questions? Could you please have a roll call?
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Yes.
Ryan Huff,
Yes.
Sandra Liggins. Yes. Dustin Martin,
Yes.
Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Rhonda Myers,
Yes.
Doris Nestor. Wagner.
Yes.
10 in favor.
And I just wanted to thank Tim and Patricia McVicker and everybody else that's been involved in the process. It is this has been something they've been working on for over a year at least, and even prior to my arrival. So a lot of time and effort and research has gone into this. So I just wanted to point that out, and I appreciate their work.
Next item is emergency instructional time template. Is there a motion to approve the emergency instructional time template?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion? Please call roll.
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Sue Heaston,
Yes.
Brian Huffman,
Yes.
Sandra Liggins, Martin,
Yes.
Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Rhonda Myers,
Yes.
Doris Nestor,
Yes.
Suzanne Smith,
Yes.
Michael Wagner.
Yes.
10 in favor.
Thank you. Motion carries. Our next item is the resolution to declare COVID-19 pandemic an emergency under section 520.1 of the Pennsylvania School Code. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Suzanne Smith, second.
Any discussion or questions? Call roll.
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Sue Heaston,
Yes.
Brian Huffman,
Yes.
Sandra Liggins,
Yes.
Dustin Martin,
Yes.
Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Wanda Myers,
Yes.
Doris Nestor,
Yes.
Suzanne Smith,
Yes.
Michael Wagner,
Yes.
10 in favor.
The motion carries. Our next item is the big item tonight, our health and safety plan. And I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Trail, who provide the overview of the health and safety plan.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. It's finally, I wasn't sure. It just seemed like a long time before July 1 got here. So anyway, it's just a privilege to be here. So we'll dive right in, and obviously we'll provide an opportunity for you to ask questions. So I'm sure all of you are well familiar. Each of your districts have to have a health and safety plan in effect before students can come back into the brick and mortar buildings. So Jared, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. And I just wanted to let you know that this presentation was also shared with our staff. Dr. West and myself did a recording, and part of my recording did include this health and safety plan. So you're seeing exactly what the staff saw today. So each district IU must appoint a pandemic coordinator, and I will be the one for LIU. The health and safety plan obviously is being, hopefully, will give your stamp of approval tonight. And we did decide to use the PDE template. However, I do want to state that we also added some additional items just because we have so many employees across various locations, that we wanted to be sure that we were very transparent with all of our employees as well as our stakeholders. So we added some additional pieces beyond the PDE template. Next slide. So this plan obviously includes our offices and our classrooms in all of our locations. It also includes our Act 89 non-public, our McKinney-Vento program, our English learner program, preschool, and adult education. And we will follow this health and safety plan to the extent feasible in all of those locations. But I also wanted to make it clear to our employees who work in district classrooms, I wanted to make sure that I pointed out that it's their responsibility to follow that district's health and safety plan as well. Also, I did not include this information on the slide, but I understand you received the entire health and safety plan. And I just wanted to point out all the members that are listed at the beginning of the plan who were on the pandemic committee. And that we also included some general guidelines for the red, yellow, and green phases as well, just because we thought that information would be extremely helpful. Next slide. So personally, I feel this is the big one that, we as an IU, as well as every school district across the state, is trying to figure out what is the best way to deliver instruction. So I just wanted to make it clear that our goal at LIU is really to have face-to-face instruction. However, I want to say that our reopening will be fluid because, we want to work with each one of our districts. We partner with them. And we also want to be cognizant regarding those families who don't feel it's the right choice for their child to be in a face-to-face environment. So we are going to be very cognizant of being customer service because not a one size fits all in this particular situation. Next slide. Our early intervention will be on a completely different schedule. So week A, our AM students will attend in person while our PM students will receive virtual learning. So that will be for the first week. Then the second week, that will actually flip-flop. So the AM students will receive virtual learning with the PM students attending in session. Next slide, please. So this just highlights the different parts of the PDE plan. This section obviously is cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, and ventilation. So we are going to do the best that we can in regards to deep cleaning of high touch surface areas throughout the building on a daily basis. We're going to introduce fresh air into ventilation systems as applicable. Our water fountains will not be in use as we're going to encourage our students to bring their own water bottles. Classroom teachers will be responsible for wiping down surfaces and disinfecting those surfaces when those spaces are used by more than one student, one teacher, or if we're sharing educational materials. And then we are aiming to disinfect our vehicles, the transportation vans, after every run. Next slide, please. So just some other safety protocols that we wanted to highlight. To the extent feasible, we're going to stagger arrival and dismissal times for medically fragile students, specifically at our centers. Removal of items from classroom spaces that are not required. Looking at social distancing, what can we do to remind students of that, as well as arrange the room to allow for the most room for social distancing. We're also looking at putting in plexiglass dividers for instruction where students are unable to wear masks due to their medical situations. Next slide, please. We do have a lot of related services, employees or staff that work in various locations, and we will do our best to find areas of 6 feet or larger so that they can be social distance as much as possible. Next slide, please. Some more safety protocols. We will be using cafeterias in our centers and also adjacent areas to help cut down on the number in the cafeteria at one time. We want to increase trips to the sink, reinforce use of hand sanitizer. We do have signage at the end of this plan in one of our appendix that way we could be consistent across all of our centers as well as in our classrooms. We want to limit the number of students on the playground, make sure that each student has individual designated areas for their own personal materials and supplies. We obviously realize there will be times when materials must be shared and just because we don't have enough of them, but we're going to do our best to make sure that they are disinfected after each use by a student. Staff will retrieve students from vehicles whose parents decide to drop them off so we don't have to have parents coming into the building. What is social distance for all meetings to the extent feasible. Faculty rooms may be used, but we would like to make sure, once again, social distancing is in place by limiting the number of chairs to the tables. And then in York Learning Center, as well as any other centers that may have a coffee cart or a snack wagon or donut selling, unfortunately, those wonderful things need to be suspended until further notice. Next slide, please. So how are we going to handle whenever we have visitors, staff, and employees, whether they're coming into our facilities, whether students are coming into the classrooms or centers, and our employees are reporting to work. So we chose to use this tool that you see in front of you that PDE put out a couple of weeks ago, which really provided clarification, I believe, for school districts and intermediate units across the state. So I do want to highlight, though, you'll see a double asterisk that EI, or early intervention / preschool, their screening tool is different because those employees go into the home. It's actually a more comprehensive, and that screening tool was put out by Ocdel, which is the Office of Child Development and Early Learning. But for visitors, the expectation is that the receptionist will ask visitors if they have any of the above symptoms before entering the building. Employees are tasked with self-monitoring and reporting if they fall into one or both categories above as indicated. And then employees are then asked if they fall into one or both of those categories, they're asked to contact HR department. For our parents, for our students, we're empowering our parents to monitor their child's health before boarding a school vehicle or before they drop their child off at school. Next slide, please. So we thought it was important that specifically all of our staff knew what the expectations were when it comes to monitoring student health during this challenging time. So if students are symptomatic, they've actually been tested and determined to be COVID-19 negative, the student is just going to remain home until they meet the normal criteria for return after an illness, which is fever-free, vomiting, diarrhea-free for greater than 24 hours without medication, or a clinician or doctor has evaluated the child and documented an alternative diagnosis and that the child may return to school. Next slide, please. So the next situation is when the student is symptomatic. COVID-19 testing has not been completed, or if they think the parent thinks they've been with someone who has had COVID. The process here will be the student will remain home until all of the following are true, specifically the first 3 bullets, at least 10 days since the onset of symptoms, and fever-free without the use of anti-fever medication for 3 days and symptoms are improving. Or a clinician has evaluated the child and documented an alternative diagnosis and that the student may return to school. Next slide, please. And then if a child is tested positive for COVID, they need to remain at home for at least 10 days since the onset of symptoms and until fever-free with all anti-fever medication for 3 days and symptoms are improving. And obviously at this point, we will have been notified by the health department and they will be providing us further guidance on any next steps that the IU would need to take. Next slide. So for employees, if they're concerned, back to that slide that was in reference to the monitoring tool. So any employees that feel, you can see number 1, if they're experiencing at least 1 symptom in category A or at least 2 symptoms in category B, then they need to contact HR. If they've been exposed to someone who has tested positive, they need to contact HR. There's so many varying things that could happen. So that's why we're asking them to contact HR so that they have a handle on, the type of things that are going on with that particular employee. And then they would be able to provide further guidance as to what the employee should do. Next slide, please. So some other considerations as part of the plan, specifically mask wearing. I know this is definitely a challenging issue, but I wanted to make note for our employees that Dr. West did put a memo together several weeks ago once the order came down from the governor, and that is in Appendix G of our entire plan. So that those expectations are very clear to our staff. In regards to students, I want you to note the highlighted portion is that we do expect students to wear their face masks, face coverings, face shields at all times. However, we do understand that there are some students that really will be unable to do so for various reasons. But the piece that has changed and that was in error, and I did send out a memo yesterday to the staff letting them know that this slide was an error and the highlighted part needed to be changed. So after talking with our solicitor, Mr. Z, he was really able to provide further guidance, not only for myself, but for all employees as to what our expectation is for our students. And basically, because of the governor's order, students can't opt out of wearing face coverings, but it's not our goal to treat it as a disciplinary issue initially. Basically, our course of action would be to segregate the student if they refuse to wear a mask, and then call the parent. And hopefully we can come to a solution through those steps. Next slide, please. So professional development. The IU has access to Safe Schools, which has modules in a variety of different topics. And we selected 2 on COVID. One was just an awareness, one was cleaning and disinfecting your workplace. So all employees are required to complete both of those modules. As part of our appendix, the next 3 items, we have a memo in there regarding disinfecting classrooms, as well as the correct use of PPE in relation to gloves, gowns, and face coverings. Also, we have a memo in there, expectations for transportation drivers in relation to what are the expectations for those drivers for face coverings and disinfecting the van, etc. I mentioned that all staff are currently receiving this update on the health and safety plan because, again, that was part of my recording. And then because today was our first day of in-service, our nurses put together 2 different options during the in-service day. One was general health and safety precautions in the classroom, and then the other one was COVID-19 from a nursing perspective. Next slide, please. So I just highlighted here that some school districts chose to only post the summary part of the plan, which you could do. We chose to, again, to be transparent, and once you hopefully give your stamp of approval tonight, we will get that uploaded to our website tomorrow. And then the last page before the appendix is the board affirmation that we would need a signature from our board president this evening. Next slide, please. And then lastly, we do have several appendices. Appendix A is, since some of our staff, obviously at an IU, we provide professional development in district facilities. We wanted to provide expectations and guidelines to keep our staff safe, but also provide guidance for those in attendance. So that is Appendix A. Appendix B, I've already mentioned, that's in relation to the guidelines and expectations for transportation drivers. Item C are the cleaning protocols for classrooms. D and E are the self-screeners that you saw that listed either A or B. And then item E is the self-screener for the early intervention. Remember, that one is different because our staff go into the home of those families. Item F is the memo from Dr. West regarding expectations for the mask. Item G is the PPE. And that just addresses gloves, face coverings, and gowns again. And then item H are just some links to CDC resources. And item I includes signage. And I just would like to say that I want to commend the hard work of the pandemic committee. In my opinion, it was a true team effort. And in my opinion, it was a job well done. So, so that wraps up my presentation, and I will, if anybody has any questions.
I have a question for you. This is great. Thank you very much. Tracing, do you have a tracing team? Because I saw that you mentioned, for example, transportation. It's very important to note the students that are on the bus, but it doesn't really say who's going to do that. Is it going to be the bus driver? Is it when they get off the bus, the teacher's going to stand there and do that? But beside that, do you have a tracing team set up?
We do. That's a really great question. We do not have a tracing team set up because my understanding was that if we had a positive case, that would come from the Department of Health. That was my understanding.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. We're supposed to call the Department of Health and they will guide us through contact tracing process.
So I guess it's Mike Wagner question. With 25 school districts, each having a different health and safety plan and reopening procedure, there's going to be, I guess, a whole lot of different scenarios that our employees will be going through over the next month or so to figure that all out. The communication piece, hopefully we have that figured out on our end of it. But how are we working with districts to make sure that they're getting the information to our employees who'll be working in their buildings, assuming back brick and mortar?
That's a great question. And my understanding, because we've already run across this, is that our staff, it's been made clear, if they're in the school district's classrooms, is that they need to sit in on the professional development in relation to that district's health and safety plan. So they are well aware of their expectations. Lynn, you can chime in if you have anything to add.
Thank you very much. And because of the situation, our special education directors group used to meet once a month. And then March came, and then we were meeting every week. And then the summer came, and we kind of let off on that a little bit, and we're meeting twice a month. And that's what we're doing. So we're in communication because we do meet on a more regular basis. Plus there are surveys that go out that we collect that information from them. And if we have any questions, we do pick up the phone to call just to make sure we have a kind of like a running sheet, a Google sheet of that information.
Is there an expectation of hiring additional cleaning services, like a outside agency?
At this time, there isn't. We, none of us know what it looks like yet. So we're gonna, with our opening, our plan is still face-to-face. We do have parents that have already reached out and said, I don't want my child going face-to-face. But I think that's a work in progress. I think, if we need to hire additional ones, that will be something that we'll definitely have to have in-depth discussion about, because we definitely want all of our staff and our students to be safe.
And has somebody ordered all the, I guess, the cleaning supplies and the masks and all of that you plan to use?
Well, Mr. Stanton, would you like to address that one? We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, and but you know what? It was the right thing to do for our staff and our students. And I was in the Chamberlain room today. It was just packed with PPE. And Lynn and the special education associate directors were working really hard, packing all of that stuff up to get out to our centers as well as our classrooms in the districts.
I did have another question. The self-screening that employees do, for instance, the reason I'm not there today is because I got back from Florida last night at 1 a.m. I'm not allowed to go to work until I've quarantined for 14 days. And they're actually, we have to fill out every day, we have to take a survey online. And the question is now being added, have you traveled outside of Pennsylvania or Maryland or wherever you are? I didn't see that in here anywhere, and I'm wondering if that's going to be included. And how do they do their daily, when I do the questionnaire every day, I sit there and physically say, no, I did not do this. I did not do this. But if you just have to know that, you know what I mean? If you don't have something that you physically have to click, you might say, I feel great today. I'm going to work.
Yes. So we had quite the lengthy discussion about the quarantine issue with all of the hot states on that list. So what we determined was that it was a recommendation. It was not a governor's order. It was a recommendation. So that is why if you are experiencing any of those symptoms back on that chart, you are to contact HR, because in my opinion, if you go to, let's just say Tennessee was on there. It was, I don't think it's on there anymore, but if you would go to and rent a cabin in the Smoky Mountains and you're camping and you're not close to anybody else, you know, you might be safer there than you are if you're going down, obviously downtown Gatlinburg. So that is why it's important to call the HR department if you're experiencing any of that. But we decided not to put the 14-day quarantine on at this point, because again, it was a recommendation. So to answer your question, we also had a lengthy discussion because we even had a form that we were going to have, like a Google Doc that they would have to click every morning. We decided to go against that. Keep in mind, we have 1,200 employees. Who was going to be policing that? Who was going to be receiving 1,200 of those every day? So we said that we're empowering our employees that they need to do it every morning. So we're trusting them to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any other questions? Just, can you guys explain a little bit about districts may be changing either the reopening plan, or if we go the first week of school and then all of a sudden some of the schools decide that this is not working out face to face, what do we as IU do? I know you said that if we're in a district building, that staff has to follow the rules of the district building, but if buildings start closing, what do we do as an IU?
So our goal is at our centers is we would still like to go face to face. You know, obviously if the governor comes out and things just get really rough and all of our districts are closing, I believe we're going to follow suit. I really do. We did get a survey out to all of our districts asking them that if they ended up going virtual, would they be open to our classrooms in those districts to go face to face? And Lynn, can you chime in on some of those survey results?
Certainly. So one of the things, the reason why we asked that is it's not because we're not concerned about the safety of our staff and our students, but it's because our students have individualized educational plans, which describes what is defined as a free and appropriate public education for our students requiring special education services. And that document that has been identified by a team, which includes the parent and the school district administration, special education teachers, regular education teachers, and so on, it determines what a free and public education looks like for a student. And that many of times is face-to-face. And so if we do not provide face-to-face types of programs, then we have even in this time of a pandemic, we would be out of compliance and subject to any type of due process hearings or with the state, because the federal law has not laxed on what the definition of FAPE is for students and what those timelines and compliance indicators are. So we surveyed the districts to say, if you are going virtual, might you be still open to have our students come 5 days face to face, regardless of your schedule is hybrid or not? And I think a majority of them did, I know a majority of them did indicate that they would be willing to have our students come on site into their classrooms 5 days a week, if we so chose to do that. To provide that service. Now there's going to be less people in the hallways and in the school building at that time, so we would make sure that we, as much as possible, be able to honor the 6-foot social distancing, in addition to the increased sanitizing and wearing of appropriate PPE. Now, that said, although that is one option, because we want to make sure that we are providing the appropriate customer service to our districts in ensuring that we are in compliance in supporting students and providing that FAPE. We are also making sure that we have options like Dr. Trail had already indicated. So we're looking for face-to-face to make sure that we're as compliant as possible, but also offering options for different teams to meet students' needs. I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Sorry, I hope that we're answering the questions that you have.
Is there a motion to approve the LIU Health and Safety Plan?
So moved.
Second.
I ask who moved, who made the motion?
Brian Hoffman made the motion.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, can you please call roll?
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Yes.
Brian Huffman,
Yes.
Sandra Liggins, Justin Martin,
Yes.
Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Rhonda Myers,
I'm sorry, did you say Rhonda Myers? Oh, yes.
Dolores Nestor,
Yes.
Sam Smith,
Yes.
Michael Wagner,
Yes.
Danielle Whitebread. Danielle Whitebread. Then we have 10 in favor.
The motion carries.
And if I could, I just wanted to follow up and also thank Dr. Trail and the Pandemic Committee for the countless hours, cabinet, everybody involved in the process. They've done a very good job, been very thorough in their conversations, their planning. As you can imagine, it's been a difficult process to go through with all the different programs and the partnerships that we have with schools and the centers. So there's a lot to a plan for an IU, and I just want to recognize their efforts and their work and thank them.
Thank you.
I would also, as the board president, thank everyone involved in this. You know, each one of our districts have had a health and safety program, but we only have to worry about our district. And the fact that IU has to worry about 25 districts, the non-public schools, and their own centers is mind-boggling to me. So I do appreciate all the work that went through. I appreciate the communication that you had with our districts. I think that was important that you reached out to them to determine what would happen if they do go virtually, because that does affect us. So I appreciate you having those conversations with them and making sure that we are in agreement what needs to be done, what's the right thing that is to be done for our students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is proposal to purchase conference room furniture. Is there a motion to approve the purchase of new tables and chairs for the Chamberlain Conference Room?
Suzanne.
So moved. Pat McDonald.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Sue Heaston,
Yes.
Brian Huffman,
Yes.
Cassandra Liggins, Justin Martin,
Yes.
Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Rhonda Myers,
Yes.
Dolores Nestor,
Yes.
Suzanne Smith,
Yes.
Michael Wagner,
Yes.
Danielle Whitebread. We have 10 in favor.
Motion carries. The next item is a discussion in regards to information on the replacement of conference room audio equipment. Jared, if you want to speak to that briefly.
Sure. And by briefly, I will keep away my 12 slide deck that I have that I could share with you about the actual microphone system. There are two actual elements to this, and I tried to give enough detail in the background. However, I do have a presentation that I can share. Given the content of the evening tonight, I can share that either through Jill or at the next board meeting, since there is no action actually on the agenda for this evening. So that certainly is available. But there's two parts. This actually was work that we were putting together as the EdTech Services Division well prior to the closure of COVID. It was several parts and components. One element that we removed is the ceiling speakers. You will notice in all of our conference rooms are actually just PA, normal hallway PA speakers. So given that this is a conference center where we often have speakers, high quality presenters, it often is challenging due to the audio demands, music, videos playing, for there to be a high quality sound that's in the room. As you can see, there's actually speakers in the front there. We've been adapting by bringing in portable units that get transported around the facility. That obviously gets the savings in hardware gets transferred into time of employees to have to set that up. But we are going to continue with that using the audio that we have. The two elements that are a part of this proposal are, first, the conference table microphones that you have in front of you. The microphones that are in front of you are one of two systems that we have actually patched together, I say kind of tongue in cheek, with a little bit of duct tape and super glue. As you can see, the cords and the cables that are running all over the conference center, it restricts us from really being able to flexibly use these microphone units across any meeting that we offer. The entire purpose of these mics is really twofold. One is, as we know, we are an accessibility organization. So when we have meetings like this, it is essential that people are able to hear not only the dialogue and discussion, but also the questions that people might have for one another. This system is 15 years old. The microphones are no longer available. Even if we were to go on to the gray market, like eBay or something like that, we would still be looking at around $500 or $600 just to replace one microphone of these types of units that are sitting here. And they're wired, which gives us that lack of flexibility. The units that are over on this side of the room are wireless, but you may have noticed they started at 8. They were a little less expensive than the units you're seeing here. They started at 8, but the mighty have fallen, and we're down to only 5 functional units as they've degraded pretty quickly. And being that they are a cheaper microphone, anytime the air conditioning unit kicks on, you heard interference. Dr. West firsthand can experience, we had a very important superintendent's meeting, and we had to swap out about 2 or 3 different microphones, which doesn't bode well and really gives to the image of professionalism for the organization. So that's part one of the table mics. Part two is, as you can see from the functioning of this meeting, just to give you some context, this took us 6 man-hours or woman-hours, it just happened to be 2 gentlemen, 6 hours to be able to actually set up. It took 6 hours because of all of the technology that's wired in, instead of being able to have it wireless where we just place it out into the locations. And it's essential to get that quality audio feed out to the people who are out in Zoom land. It's only going to be more and more that we're offering these types of services. This is not the only meeting that the IU actually hosts. We have our Lincoln Benefit Trust meetings. We have our facilities managers meetings. We have our tech directors meetings, our superintendents meetings. All of the events that we host are limited by this structure if we want to be able to actually broadcast that out beyond the walls of the IU, which is becoming more and more a practice due to remote working from within each of the locations. So that's the first element, which is the more expensive of the two. Before you asked, we did get other proposals for 3 different other systems. Those other systems were $61,000 and some change, $62,000 and some change, and $119,000. So this is a cost-effective solution that actually will give us similar functionality, if not actually ability to even upgrade from what we currently have right now. It will have built-in speakers, just like the microphones that it have now, but they will be completely wireless. There will be 24 units. So everybody would be able to have their own mic, of course, for sanitary purposes, but also the system will allow us to break it into 3 separate units, separate uses. So we could have 3 meetings going on at the same time and break those microphones up so that we actually are able to use it as 3 independently functioning systems. That is not possible with a wired system that we currently have here. So hopefully that was enough, just enough detail to give you before you begin thinking about that for the next month. The second one is a actual non-negotiable. We have to do this one. The FCC actually, I shouldn't probably say this, the microphones, some of the microphones we have actually are not able to be used right now because they are now a part of a restricted band that is no longer allowable according to the FCC. The FCC will often take back certain ranges and actually auction them off to telecommunication companies, television companies. Well, there's a set of our handhelds and lapel microphones that are in that range. And as of July 13th, they are no longer allowed to be used. So we have to replace all of our legacy, which are also about 15 years old. They were all bought about the same time as the table mics as one big system. They are all having to be replaced, and they're going to be replaced with a range that is in the legal range to be utilized. Okay, so that's the significance of the two different purchases. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jared. And this we will be presenting for approval at our September meeting. Our next item is the appointment of solicitor. I know that between Mike and I, we reached out to all the board members prior to tonight, just to let you know what was going on with Bill Z moving from Barley Snyder to join the law firm of Apple, Yost, and Z. So tonight we're going to vote on that appointment. Is there a motion to appoint Bill Z of Apple, Yost, and Z to serve as the LIU solicitor effective August 1st, 2020?
I'll motion. Suzanne Smith.
Second, Mike Wagner.
Any discussion? Can you please call roll?
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Sue Heaston,
Yes.
Brian Huffman,
Yes.
Sandra Liggins, Dustin Martin,
Yes.
Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Rhonda,
Yes.
Lois Lester. Yes. Suzanne Smith,
Yes.
Michael Wagner,
Yes.
Danielle Whitebread. We have 10 in favor.
Motion carries. So
Thank
welcome
you.
again.
Thank you.
Next item is my president's report. I want to keep it brief because I know it's been a long night. We're all having long nights in our own districts. Again, I can't reiterate the thanks to the staff here at the IU for everything that you guys are doing to try to get our students back in the buildings. I know this is a 24-hour process almost for everyone to figure out, you know, what happens if this and what happens if that, all the new regulations that come from the governor, from the health, from the CDC, everything you guys have to review. You have to make sure that our plan adheres to those guidelines. So I do appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. And I also want to thank the board for taking time to talk to Mike and I that 1 week. And it was nice just to kind of chat with everyone for the few minutes, just to kind of, you know, see where everyone was at. I know we're all under a lot of stress too in our own districts, what we're facing with and how we're going to reopen in our buildings. So I do appreciate the time. I appreciate the time that you guys took to be here tonight, because this was very important that we voted on our health plan, because we had to prove it tonight. We had to make sure that was approved. So I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. And please feel free, if you guys have any questions anytime between these meetings, just reach out to myself or Mike and ask those questions. We can, you know, talk to Dr. West for you if you want. You guys can feel free to talk to Dr. West too, as we're moving forward. If we have any concerns, questions that come from either our districts or from parents, you know, reach out to Dr. West, to myself, to Mike, and we'll see what we can do to answer those questions. Thank you. Next item, is there any public comments for on or off the agenda?
Yes, we have received 2 questions from Danielle Thompson in regards to the on-site clinics. So the first question was, what is the cost of the build out for the clinics? And the second question was, do the savings offset this cost?
What we'll do is we'll have that question submitted directly to administration and they will get back to the answer to that question. Thank you.
Sue, quickly, that was all part of, I believe, the presentation we had maybe in February, sometime a while back. We had all that. Yeah, so that was already discussed and part of board's discussion at that point.
Any other comments?
I have not received any other comments.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. West, provide your report.
You bet. Thank you. A couple of things I just wanted to bring to the board's attention. First of all, I wanted to thank all our staff who were involved in our opening in service today. Like I think I've shared with you in my Friday updates, this was our first ever completely virtual in service. And it was just amazing to see the variety of breakout sessions and the quality of information and presentations that were shared with our staff today. And I'm going to ask Cabinet, I apologize, my my mask gets in the way. But I'm going to ask and talk to Cabinet about having some of the staff come to the board meeting, hopefully next month, and just give you a little insight into the amount of work and time and effort that went into what I think is an extraordinary feat by having a virtual in-service for 1,200 employees. So I'm very proud of their efforts. I wanted to make sure I publicly thanked them for everything they did, and I want to have them come in and share with the board in more detail just everything that went into that, because it really is amazing. I already had thanked the pandemic team and Dr. Trail for all their work, so I just want to make sure I shared that again. And then lastly, I kind of want to echo what Sue said about the staff. I want to, I've tried to, over the month of closure, continue to talk to staff and thank them for their patience and understanding as we kind of all try to figure this out and work our way through COVID and closure and reopening of buildings and now reopening of school and what that looks like in the fall. So I just want to thank them for their patience and understanding. We're doing the best we can to communicate. And as we all know, things change. Sue talked about that, how often things seem to be changing. And I really talked in my message to the staff today, in my keynote, I based my message on the Charles Dickens book, A Tale of Two Cities, because I think that was a perfect tie to the kind of disruption that he was talking about in that book back in the 18th century. Is similar to the kind of disruption we see now in America and in our state and in our schools with COVID and all the uncertainties and everything. And that kind of that paradox of we've seen the best in people and we sometimes don't always see the best in how people react to these situations. And so I use that as an opportunity to really highlight our staff and showcase the resiliency that they've shown all the way through the spring and as in the summer and as we enter into the fall. I also wanted to point out specific examples of where our staff have led, learned, loved our students, each other, showcase the innovation that happens in this organization. For example, I know our professional staff had 1 week to attend a PD or professional development session on how to provide and then prepare to provide learning opportunities for students. 1 week. They had, and they stepped up to it, and it was excellent what they did. And so I just wanted to make sure that I pointed out and thanked them publicly for everything they've done and know how much we truly appreciate their efforts and their patience as we kind of work our way through this uncertain time. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. West. At this time, if Dr. Trail will provide her report.
I'm just going to make mine brief if that's okay for this evening. I just wanted to let everybody know you're also dealing with this in all of your school districts. Title IX, the change in the law goes into effect on August the 14th. So every school district has to be in compliance with that. But I wanted to go on record that for board policies 103, 248, 348, and 800, will need to be revised, but we are still waiting on PSBA to get all those revisions out to us. But I just wanted to have it on record that again, we will be reviewing these as soon as PSBA gets the changes to us. Thank you.
Okay, we'll jump into cabinet reports. Why don't we start tonight with Tracy in HR?
Hello. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I had my video on. So I'm going to mirror a little bit of what Kendra said. In human resources, we have also been working with the health and safety plan and on Title IX compliance. Our fingerprinting offices opened on July 1st. So we've had an influx of individuals that have contacted us in regards to fingerprinting completion. As of August 1st, we began to accept walk-ins. So our official first day of walk-ins was yesterday. So that has kept us busy as well. On September 1st, our appointments will become closer together. So we will not take as many walk-ins, but we will have a larger number of appointments that we'll have every day. So that has been a big task as well. While we're working on items that are specifically related to COVID-19, we have also been working on our day-to-day operations, such as hiring leaves and updating processes. We have chosen the members of our safety committee, have developed a plan for our meeting dates, our minutes, and the initial responsibilities and roles in that. And then recently, we've been working together with the districts in regards to all of the questions that we're receiving from employees about the return to our buildings. So we are all getting similar questions. So we coordinated today a way to share that information. We share a lot of our information to begin with, but this we want to have accessible immediately because we're all having the same type of questions and we want to be consistent with our answers. And some of them are a little bit challenging. So working together on that as a group cohesively is one of the biggest pieces, not only throughout the entire time of the pandemic, but especially right now with schools reopening. Thank you as usual to all the districts and my team in human resources and the support from our leadership team at the IU, because it takes a village to get through a pandemic. So I appreciate all the help. And that is all I have.
And I just wanted to say, everyone's busy and, we're all asked to do an extraordinary amount of work that in many cases we've never had to do before just because of the circumstances. But I have to tell you, a department or a division that has really been asked to do a lot is HR. And in many cases, we've got new staff in there that have not been together for a long period of time, but we've got an excellent group of folks in HR, and I just want to commend them for the amount of work and time and effort. They just put an extraordinary amount of time into everything that needs to be done with staffing changes and uncertainty, and they've really stepped up. So I just want to publicly thank that group.
Thank you.
And let's go to Dr. Sterner next.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. I wanted to kind of go off of what Dr. West had said as far as professional development. As you know, Educational Services Division, that's what we do for our customers. And with the pandemic here, we weren't sure what that was going to look like for us or how busy we would be in a virtual environment. I'm happy to say that we are swamped. That is such a great thing. One thing that we've learned in this virtual community is we're able to reach a lot more people than we would have face-to-face traditionally. We had 2 events since our last board meeting that I wanted to share. This was our 5th year for our POP conference, which is promoting office professionals. This is something that my administrative assistant, Wendy Knoll, leads. She organizes it and we help support the event. And this year we were able to reach out all across the state to participants, which was a first for us. We had 160 participants and it went extremely well. So that was our first dry run in such a large conference. And then the last one I wanted to share is we offered for the very first time the Summer Institute. This was offered free, meaning that there was no additional charges to any districts because this was all funded through TAC funding. But what I would like to share is that we had 370 participants across our footprint in that. That is fantastic. It went extremely well. Our feedback that we received from both events is really, really just, it's exciting. So we'll continue to work. Wrapping up today is our opening day with, which Dr. West said, 1,200 participants. It was such a great success in being able to meet the needs, individual needs of our staff. So thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Let's go to Tim.
The Business Services Division has been busy. My staff have been on site for the last month because we had to accomplish a lot of year-end items, such as closing out our year-end and being able to get the special ed billings out to all the districts by August 15th, so they can close their books. We've been getting ready for our fiscal year-end audit. We've had auditors on site already in July for multiple days. We're also working on a accounting conversion for the Lincoln Benefit Trust. They need to switch over to different accounting software because their software is no longer supported and is obsolete. We have a timesheet software implementation that we've been working on for the last year, and it will be implemented during this month. The Lincoln Benefit Trust also conducted a summer workshop recently, and they had 25 HR directors and HR personnel attend from 20 different school districts. We've also spent a tremendous amount of time searching out and acquiring PPE for our staff, and I want to publicly thank Tom Weaver and Deb Kane. We've had a lot of intense conversations on trying to acquire those items in a timely manner, and it is very difficult to find some of the PPE, and I'm sure the districts are aware of that as well. But as of tomorrow, I believe that we'll have all the PPE in that was requested. The last shipment is stock up in Harrisburg at a freight terminal, and we're hoping that it will be delivered tomorrow, and that will finalize that process of acquiring all the items requested that will keep our staff safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Dr. Murphy.
Good evening again. So not unlike everybody else, we're having to learn to do things differently as we start school in these uncertain times, and have to think about the fluidity of providing FAPE to students during this time in a safe and judicious manner with regard to the use of our PPE. We want to make sure that our students and our staff are safe. We also want to make sure that we're proceeding in a judicious manner with all the PPE that we are using. We know that our students, many of them, come to us for services because they require a level of expertise and intervention that is hard to do within 6 feet social distancing. And so in order to appropriately support them, coming up with different ways of how we can do so in today's time and this event that we're going through. And so when the staff have been working hard to be able to develop not only the use of PPE protocols, but also how do you develop classroom management plans that include mask wearing for those students who don't wish to wear a mask or who have some mental health issues about coming back to school. Having to figure out what does attendance look like in a virtual setting, and knowing that we have to account for attendance. And so developing those different protocols, developing social stories for our students who may not understand what is going on during this time. So there's a lot of work that goes into the planning, a lot of thinking differently. It's changing mindsets of 1,000 employees about, we're used to doing it one way, now we have to do it another way. But the first and foremost, and I had to give kudos to the special division staff, is being able to think, how can we? Because it's the students who benefit at the end, and it's in support of our district customers that we are doing so. And we are proceeding and moving ahead and in keeping constant communication with our districts so that we can understand their needs and meet their needs of the students with more complex learning needs at this time, not to mention the mental health needs. So for instance, tomorrow we will have our in-service focused on two major things in the special education division. One of those is on the health and safety plan. How do you keep yourself safe so that students can also be safe? And then how do you support students in being able to stay safe in this new educational environment, knowing that there are going to be many opportunities where that 6-foot social distancing is not going to be applicable or be able to be done. And so the other thing we're focusing on is mental health. So mental health, not only doing the self-check of ourselves, where are we? Because we as adults, this is uncertain times for us too, and we each take that differently. And so how do we be attuned to our own mental health, as well as how do we support our students who are coming back into face-to-face settings or virtual settings? How do we help them persevere through these times as well, whether they can adequately verbalize their fears or frustrations, or whether they can't. And so making sure that we are aware of some of the signs, we are aware of the resources that are available to be able to help students deal with the mental health that's surrounded by this pandemic as well. So I want to thank all my colleagues here as far as working organizationally to help support us. So Tim's group with regard to the PPE, Brad's group and Jared's group with regard to being thought partners in the thinking about the in-servicing. And I cannot say enough about Tracy and helping to help staff be able to feel some type of comfort in coming back. And of course, Dr. Trail in leading us through developing and having those difficult conversations with regard to the health and safety plan. So thank you all for your support.
Thank you. And Jared.
Wow, you said that so solemnly. So did anyone else notice that? Because I noticed that. So I'll be brief. You know, we run a Lincoln Edge program. I'm sure many districts have been talking about that. You hear that cut out? So one of the things that you can really tell about the growth of our program and serving your needs is, and frankly, the metric that is the most important one to hear. Last year, this time, we had 37 students enrolled in Lincoln Edge. Ended the year with 117. Today, as of 5 p.m., 300 in Lincoln Edge, 320. So now imagine if any one of your principals came to you and said, hey, our enrollment's going to magnify by a multiple of 10 next year. You can imagine what that does to staffing. You can imagine what that does to the support structures that we need in place. So we are working very hard to make sure that we're serving those needs. 2/3 of the districts have requested pricing for site licensing. What we're trying to do is tap into the personnel and the resources, meaning computers, internet, that you're already providing to students and you already have on your payroll to be able to creatively provide almost a hybrid of Lincoln Edge. So we're not duplicating efforts, and we're also not committing to the number of students that we know we can't, Lynn used the word judiciously, really with integrity, provide the same high quality program that we've been providing. We want to meet your needs, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're going to work flexibly to be able to continue to grow that program and understand that in a very short period of time, relatively speaking, those enrollments are going to go back down and we're going to be back to some semblance of normalcy. Whether we get back down to the 117 at our max, I'm not sure. We might always stay around 150 to 200 or a little more, but we definitely are working with that program, and so glad. I was telling the group over here at the beginning of the meeting, I'm so glad that we have been kind of a mainstay in the space. That program has existed for 5 years as it is today. And I don't know what we would have done as an IU if we would not have had that program ready for you to be able to enroll students in. So I'm proud of Alan Moose as our supervisor of online learning and his entire team that has been in that's in that program. So I want to make sure to highlight that group because while all of my infrastructure and professional learning team, a part of EdTech Services, has been just knocking it out of the park, I don't get to mention as often the Lincoln Edge and Lincoln Cyber Cafe program. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion, Suzanne Smith.
The meeting is adjourned and our next meeting will be September 1st. Thank you, everyone.